Hey guys, so I wanted to do a video, or probably a series of videos, kind of like what I've done it a couple times now, and I really like talking about educational philosophy, why we do what we do, exploring different nuances of education, different facets of education, um, walking through different experiences that I have had in education and what I've learned from them. Um, I really it's great. It's a great reflective time for me to constantly because I'm always reflecting. I'm always thinking about what I've done, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and trying to evolve kind of my perspective and my take on things and how I approach things. And doing this helps me kind of revisit concepts and ideas and philosophies that I hold. And so I figured might as well bring you along for the ride, which I've done a couple times over the years, for those that enjoy it. And today, specifically, I wanted to reflect on and talk about the purpose of school. When I was growing up, um, the purpose of school was pretty one dimensional. It was you got to go get your learning in, you got to get your academics, so that you can go out into the real world and be productive, was basically the sum of it. Academics were the be all end all. If you didn't learn to read and didn't learn to do math and didn't learn your science and history and all that, then you weren't going to be a success in life. You were going to fail miserably, um, and you were going to struggle your whole life. That's kind of what I was told. And of course, as I got older, that kind of narrative kind of switched to not just school, like public school, but like college. All of a sudden, like college became the thing where like you need college to be successful, to pursue your dreams, to make money, to be comfortable in life. Um, as I have aged, as I have gotten experience, as I have worked in education now for almost 15 years, I have come to realize that was very misguided thinking, and that there is far more important work schools can do. Now, yes, academics are important to a degree, right? Um, it's good for kids to have academics. It's good to learn to read. It's good to grapple um, with mathematical logic and reasoning and critical thinking. It's good to understand the scientific method. Um, it's good to understand history, so we hopefully don't repeat history, so we can appreciate where we are today by understanding where we came from. I'm not sure that school necessarily always does a great job at accomplishing these things. And part of that is, I believe, that school um, has taken a faulty approach and they're missing some pieces or some ingredients to the recipe. Um, Trying to think of how to approach this without getting too long-winded. I don't want these videos to be so long that people tune out. So I'm going to try to keep them to about 10 minutes. Um, I think the big piece, I guess, that I'll talk about today, there's more to it, but the first piece I'll tackle is the missing piece the school has not done a great job of fostering, which is the understanding that, like, yeah, the academics are nice and they can be beneficial, but they're nothing. And you will fail miserably at providing kids the ability to learn and engage with the academics if you don't first focus on the person. If you don't understand how people learn, if you don't understand how people work, how the brain operates, how emotions work, um, how motivation works, you are never going to be successful teaching students. So we need to, to me, focus on the characteristics that we want to see in kids, the values we want to instill in kids. We need to focus on social etiquette, politeness, manners, things like that. Empathy, building uh, confidence, giving kids a sense of confidence in themselves, comfort in their individuality, being comfortable in their own skin. And we need to eradicate this idea that there is a normal. And I'll make a whole video on that because that's an important piece of this. Um, we need to really convey to kids, not just in our words, but in what we do. And I can make a video on that as well because that is so important. What we do needs to communicate to kids that you are an individual, you are unique, and that is okay. You don't have to be, and you will never be like everybody else because nobody is like everybody else. And a lot of hardships our kids go through and that many of us went through in school was because many of the actions and systems and structures that are in place in school perpetuate this idea that we all should be the same and all should think the same and do the same and know the same things and learn it in the same ways and learn at the same pace. And it's not because school was maliciously designed to do this. All of these things came from very well-intended places. They just didn't accomplish the goal that was set out to be accomplished. A lot of these things got put in place because we have a big job that is very difficult and very complex and can be very scary at times. When you are grappling with building up the person, and when you're grappling with things like developing a critical thinker versus an academic scholar, right? So, like, developing a critical thinker is very difficult and can be uncomfortable as a teacher because, I think, too often our society and culture views teachers as somebody, if you are teaching, then you need to know everything. You need to have all the answers. And to me, we need to shift that and we need to make sure that teachers are comfortable with this idea that your job is not to know everything. You don't have to know everything to be a good teacher. You have to have a desire to learn and you have to be okay with failure. Because that's like you look at the riding the bike process, right? When you're learning to ride a bike, the reason why kids persevere through that is because at that point in their life, like failure is okay. Like you fall down, you get back up and you get back on. That's the message we reinforce to the kids. And the failure to success ratio is it's a healthy failure to success ratio. Failure isn't stigmatized or demonized when a kid is learning to ride a bike. When they fall off, we encourage them to get back up and try again. And the more a kid does that, the better they get at riding the bike. So there's intermittent successes along the way, even though there is also constant failure. There's just enough success woven in there. That kid is all of a sudden they're riding their bike and they make it 10 feet. Before they were making it like 2 or 3 before they fell. Now they made it 10 feet. Progress. Keeps them motivated. Makes them willing to try again. Right? And so we got to constantly monitor that failure to success ratio. And if the kids are experiencing too much failure, we need to ask the question of why. And we need to not stigmatize them for it. And that's something that growing up, failure was very heavily stigmatized. You didn't get a retake on the test. If you failed, you just should have done better. You should have done it. You should have learned it the first time. If you got failing grades, you got punished. Failure was this like horrible thing. If you didn't go to college, you're going to be a failure. How many of us know people who struggled in school? Maybe how many of us are people who struggled in school? They're doing just fine. We have wonderful kids. we have good jobs. We've gone on to be very happy people who are successful at what they do and are good at what they do. How many people are out there that don't have any college education that are very intelligent, that are very hardworking, that are awesome people, that are awesome parents, that are making a good living for themselves? We all know people like that, tons and tons and tons of people. That narrative that was spun to me as a kid, I learned very much so, is false. And it's really had me thinking about what is the purpose of school. And to me, we should be actively trying to build people who will persevere, people who feel good about themselves and confident in themselves, people who are willing and able to take a risk and embrace failure as a positive thing, as a learning opportunity, and people who pursue being happy first, which will then result in being successful, versus being miserable, um, overworking yourself, um, you know, and just like grinding, overworking, being miserable, doing things you don't want to do, and then ultimately coming out the other side with anxiety, depression, um, no self confidence, regret, things like that. Hard work is necessary, but if we're going to put in that hard work and put in that grind, it should be towards a goal that we are trying to achieve, that we want to achieve, and doing it in a way that is healthy. So, uh, running up on 12 minutes now, so I'm going to cut this video off. But that's been on my mind for the last couple of years, and I'm working my way through that. Is figuring out what is the purpose of school. How does it need to shift? It's not just simply about developing academic scholars anymore. And we need to be thoughtful about that. What do we want the purpose of schools to be? And then how do we make sure that what we're doing reinforces that?